the people at? Where they at?
Get down. Time to get on. It's time to party. Hey, hey. It's time to have fun.
Welcome to episode 112 of Amari Purple Talk, a podcast where I share my thoughts on the Prince musical singularity. I'm Richard Cole, the Amari and Amari Communications, and every episode I break down everything in the world of Prince and all Prince-related music and artists, as well as genres of music that has had a major influence on his art. And joining me this episode, we have Raine Baker, creator of the Listen to Prince blog. Mr. Baker, welcome to the show.
Hey, man, glad to be here.
All right, this is kind of the Groundhog's Day episode of Amari Purple Talk because we recorded a whole episode talking about the Gold Experience.
Man, we had a whole bop.
Yeah, and it mysteriously disappeared. I guess Prince was like, no, you can't talk about that right now. Because literally the next day, this whole Morris Day and the time thing happened. And well, you know, I got that ran out of my system now. So here we are, Monday night, the Gold Experience. It was an album that was released September 26th of 1995, sold 500,000 copies. That means it went gold in the United States and got as high as number 6 on the Billboard 200. So, Mr. Baker, any memories of the Gold Experience?
Yeah, I grew up in a farm town. So when this came out, I was one of very few people who were blasting this. And I remember several people right from that opening track giving me the side eye and getting wrapped up in the controversy of the lyric rather than listening to the message, just as I'm pretty sure a lot of people did over the decades. But, you know, we were talking about it last time, and I kind of went down that road, whereas, you know, the peak control, you know, people wanting me to turn it down and being, you know, clutching the pearls that I was playing a song that says that word. It says that word. The thing that I started pondering on, the thing I really, really remember was Dolphin, actually. That was the song that I was able to play everywhere, that, you know, nobody had a problem with. And it seemed like the most accessible off of the album. Because, I mean, you know, The Most Beautiful Girl in the World, that one was, you know, that was the hit of this whole period, you know.
Right.
I mean, the Beautiful Experience EP itself stayed on the chart longer than the Gold Experience did.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But Dolphin was the one that I was able to kind of turn the most heads, and they were like, oh, okay, maybe I can get into this. So then after Dolphin, it was Shh and Endorphin Machine, and people were getting into that. And then, you know, Now didn't really resonate with so many people. Because I mean, at that time, you were either, it was like that. Now is like that in between hip hop, to where it wants to be the full on, but like, you know, mid 90s, we were in the G-Funk world, which, I mean, that's not, you know.
Like, I was about to ask about that.
It was holding on to that residual New Jack Swing sound, sort of. But so it sounded kind of like what had already happened, and it wasn't quite what was popular at the time. So usually I kind of lost people whenever Now came on, even though, I mean, that's a stone groove. I love it.
Right.
But the more I thought about it, since we did that Groundhog's Day episode, I really started thinking of all the different heads that got turned into the artist fans because of Dolphin.
Okay.
That had been told to turn it down because of Peak Control.
Wow. Okay. So that was in a way their kind of gateway, but
Yeah.
they kind of drew the line at Peak Control on that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know. I was about to ask, or I didn't think to ask it last time because you were having to turn the volume down on that song. So how was the reception? Because, like you said, the world was knee deep in the G Funk era. That was all Death Row. Um, Tupac hadn't jumped over with All Eyes on Me yet,
Right.
but I mean, he still had Me Against the World. That was big. Um, yes, yeah, on the East Coast, Biggie. So, like, were those sounds?
You know, I
In,
I don't know how to reason that out in the Prince world because there was definitely and I'm blanking on which variation of Most Beautiful Girl in the World it was. Yeah, I remember it was the third version. It wasn't Stax. It wasn't the beautiful variant. Um, I'm not going to remember what that other one is off the top of my head, but that one was a little more G Funk inspired, to where rap was one of the few genres that just didn't come naturally to Prince. And you know, I'm going to say that was partly because he grew up in Minneapolis, and that's not to say that that culture and those sounds and those beats and rhythms weren't possible there. But in the early 90s and late 80s and mid 90s, it was very much East Coast rap versus West Coast rap.
right.
It wasn't until I moved down south that I even realized that it was just like the blues, where, there's at least 13 different variations of blues styles.
Right.
It wasn't until I went through Atlanta and even through, Houston and everywhere else that I realized there are all these other different variations of rap and hip hop out there. There was more than just New York and LA
Oh, yeah.
up with it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And part of that, I think, was because growing up in central Indiana, pre-internet, I mean, there was internet, but unless you knew to look for it, you didn't know to look for it.
Right.
Because I wasn't around a center where there was that kind of exposure. I didn't realize that everything that I was being spoon-fed, there was more to it out there. So I thought it really was East Coast, West Coast, and that's really, it was kind of coming in to meet in the middle. So the variation of hip hop that Prince could get behind, New Jack Swing, which was a little more musical, and I'm not going to say, well, I'm not going to expand on that, but I don't mean how that sounds. It was a little more musical. It tended to have a bit of a swing feel to it, to where he just knew exactly what to do with that and jumped on it and kept going with it. And that sound was, to me, that was the Prince sound. Like that early 90s, Diamonds and Pearls, a little bit, Love Symbol album, a lot of it.
Okay.
Like, to me, that was the sound. And he could get into the hip hop. It just wasn't something that came naturally. So some of the times he added that swagger to his work, and he just dripped swagger. But some of the themes that the G-Funk and other forms were really going on, he didn't really perpetuate himself in his own music. So I think staying away from that probably was better in the long run for him, rather than trying to jump on something that maybe he couldn't sell quite as what's the word I'm looking for? It just didn't seem authentic coming from where he was.
Yeah. And I think for me, just trying to reminisce about that period. Like I said, I was familiar with most of the forms of hip hop, especially, West Coast, of course, East Coast. Then you had a lot of stuff going on down south, whether it was Miami, Houston. The Midwest itself didn't really jump. It really didn't catch on until maybe another 10 years after that. But as far as Prince, for me, like I said, Diamonds and Pearls, that was an enjoyable record.
Yeah.
I think for me, the appeal is the fact that this is Prince instead of being, you know, artistic Prince. This was Prince. Yeah, I could be commercial. Watch this.
Right.
And to me, and that's, you know, that's the appeal. The Love Symbol album, I enjoy a lot of cuts on it. But it kind of left me, you know, feeling kind of not so fulfilled as far as an overall album experience with that. And then you get into 93 with the name change. And that was baffling at first. And I guess to, you know, as I'm looking back and remembering how everything unfolds, there was that issue of Controversy magazine where Mate wrote the letter trying to explain the name change and all of the songs that he was working on, which ended up on Come, which ended up on Gold Experience. If I felt any kind of apprehension about remaining a Prince fan, to me, that letter kept the interest going. And then you fast forward to the next year and that Vibe magazine article. Those two things, it was just as exciting as, to me, Prince in 1983 with, you know, the whole mystique. You know, we didn't know who Jamie Starr was. You know, we knew about the time, we knew about Vanity 6, but, you know, we didn't know what we know now as Prince fans. It was just that mystery. 93, 94 was that equivalent to that. And as things started, you know, he started doing interviews with a bunch of British magazines. And here's Come, here's the Gold Experience. None of it had been released yet, but there's this big mystery surrounding it. And even if we didn't get what the name change was all about at first, at least musically, there was something to look forward to. And I think right after the Vibe article, or maybe before, the appearance on Soul Train, where you had Acknowledge Me, let's see, Now, and was it, like you said, it wasn't the Stax version of Most Beautiful Girl. I think it was the Mustang mix. Yes.
That's the one I was trying to come up with earlier.
Yeah. And what else did he do? I think he did Love Sign, and I think that was it, just those 4 songs. And man, I mean, just looking forward to the music because now we got to hear some of it. And it was just so, you know, just so mind-blowing for that period. And disappointing that the Gold Experience didn't drop like within weeks or within a month or two of that Soul Train appearance, or even before that Soul Train appearance. I think this is his best.
Yeah, that whole time was weird on all sides. I just mean weird as in it's so nuanced and convoluted as to the reasons why things started going the directions that they did, that it's hard to come up with just to point to one thing that caused any of it. You know, the name change was born out of frustration from the direction that he had been going. I'm sure it was easy to look at it as he was being stonewalled at every turn and what he was wanting to do, but there was more to it than that. From the Warner Brothers side of it, they had just been acquired by Time. Remember the whole AOL, Time Warner.
That's
Element, OP, what got to be a whole thing.
Right.
But there was this corporate sea change that happened, and the corporate climate was changing. You know, Warner Brothers used to be the label of the artist. And that's when, you know, 76, sitting cross-legged on Mo Austin's floor with, you know, his manager and just talking music all night. And then fast forward to 93, you got to go through the corporate protocol, and then they've got to run the numbers. And it wasn't the artist's label anymore. So, and even Austin was frustrated by that because he wasn't allowed to make the decisions that he wanted to make or that he used to make because his job was on the line. And after so long, when your job is constantly threatened, especially at those high pressure levels where he was, uh, it just turns into frustration being pushed on everybody else.
Yeah.
So there were all these outside forces that caused everything to collide the way that it did. And unfortunately, the George Clinton and Mavis Staples albums from 93, which were probably the most solid work they had done within 10 years in front or behind those albums. I mean, George Clinton's Hey Man, Smell My Finger was just a phenomenal record that was an unfortunate bystander of Paisley Park being closed. And this is one of the Prince's albums. Yeah, we're tossing that.
Yeah.
Mavis's The Voice was, are you kidding me? The Voice is just such a good album, start to finish. But everything was swirling around. I mean, like, those two we weren't even planning on even mentioning, but this whole period is just so convoluted and so messy, and there were so many ideas. And I heard a story one time, and I really do believe that it started off with the whole name change. It started off with, well, you're putting out albums under Prince. What if you didn't do that anymore? And then he remembered the Camille idea and how they were kind of behind that. So it kind of opened the door to letting it happen. And I feel like it just snowballed from there. I don't know whether that's true or not, but I can't even remember which one of the associates had said that it was just said as a joke, and he took it completely literally.
And the purple light bulb went off on that one.
Right.
Yeah, I know we were discussing last week where you're right. There's so much history behind this that it's hard to, number one, stay focused on the album itself. Number two, before we even got to the point of now getting the Gold Experience on vinyl, getting it on CD, we'll kind of touch on that a little later. But to me, were the better idea, if we weren't going to get these reissues or even a super deluxe edition, was to have something just cover that era. Because a lot of the songs, they were interchangeable. There were songs on Come that was supposed to be on Gold Experience, vice versa.
Chaos and Disorder too. I mean,
that's right. Yeah, there was one configuration.
Chaos and Right the Wrong were supposed to be on Come at some point. They were on Gold Experience at some point.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, I'd have to go back through my notes, but yeah, all those three albums shared tracks, they shed tracks, they were kind of interchangeable as far as the track list went. So yeah, that definitely would be the way I also would hope that they would go and say, here's this fourth iteration of work that was in and out and around these albums.
Yeah, I know. At one point, one episode, because like I said, I've been campaigning for this reissue since probably the third episode of this show. And I felt if we couldn't get The Most Beautiful Girl in the World back into the sequence of this album as an alternate, maybe one of the other configurations of the Gold Experience, or, just put in Days of Wild, or put in,
right.
In fact, that's it. Just put in Days of Wild, and I would have been fine with that. Really, I know. And then too, with The Most Beautiful Girl in the World, in this complicated history of just 2 years, practically, really 2 years, 93, 94, 95.
Yeah, mid 93 to mid 95.
Yeah. Here we have Prince changing his name and wanting to do, put out more music or put it out independently. And later we'll have to kind of get into just how far ahead of his time he was with this. But starting with The Most Beautiful Girl in the World, starting with that song, that was him kind of dipping his toe in the water for, where we would see him in 96 and in 2000 and 2010 and 2014, where it's just him being independent and making the kind of deals with major labels that gave him, more autonomy. So and this was like, I think, one of his last major hits.
Yeah, I think I I had I'd spent the whole day prepping my numbers and making sure I knew where everything charted and whatnot last time, and I kind of ran out of time to do that today. But Most Beautiful Girl in the World was his last real successful single. I mean, I think we came up with a few that probably had the notoriety, but it wasn't as long lived as Most Beautiful Girl in the World was. I mean, I remember Musicology was everywhere.
Yeah.
But after that tour was done, it was nowhere. Guitar with the whole Verizon cross promotion, that was everywhere for the summer of 2007. And then August ended, and so did that song's presence. Most Beautiful Girl in the World, like I said, the EP was on the charts for 6 months at least.
Wow.
Give or take,
Yeah, I remember you were saying that last week.
And it was an almost not instantaneous, but for a single that was independently released, it was instantly a hit. And it was a hit for at least 2 months before the EP came out. So you have 7 months of that song just being in everybody's ear everywhere you look. I mean, it debuted with, what was it, the Miss America pageant, Miss Universe pageant? It was one of the pageants.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, the Miss
debuted ahead of
Universe.
Its actual single release. And it is the most perfect pop song. The lyrics are as, vague yet specific enough to where it could be about anybody. Like he was saying at the Australian piano and a microphone shows, girls, if a guy ever says he wrote this song about you, I mean, with Most Beautiful Girl in the World, there's at least 4 or 5 women who can very passionately say it was about me, and they're probably all right.
Yeah, I know. I didn't know how far to go down that road the last time, about when you mentioned that. You said like 5 different women could have been the inspiration.
Yeah, it's at least Maite, Vanessa Marcel, who was in one of the versions of the Undertaker video. She was also, I believe, on a soap opera at the time. I'd have to go back.
Oh, yeah, I think so. Yeah.
But Nona Gay, Carmen Electra, who was a much bigger love interest for Prince than I think anybody really wants to acknowledge. I mean, she inspired Your Pop Go to Zippa and I Hate You. So,
wow.
There are more songs that I can think of that were directly inspired by events with Carmen Electra than anybody else that I can, really pinpoint, But there's at least those 4, and there's probably others who feel like, yeah, that was written for me.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, we don't want to start any cat fighting or anything, but that's mind blowing. But then again, that is Prince.
Yeah.
And only Prince can get away with doing that. Don't try this at home.
Definitely don't try that at home.
Yeah. Experienced driver on a closed course. Do not attempt.
Be the basis for a Law and Order episode.
Well,
why did you kill him?
That song was about me, and he knows it. So here we have The Most Beautiful Girl in the World, and yeah, this was his actually final, I say top 5 single in the world of sound scan. Now digital, that's different. I think they track digital sales and things of that nature differently. So I think like Black Sweat charted very high, but
Yeah.
is in terms of, I guess, actual physical sales and or radio play. For the United States, the pop charts, Most Beautiful Girl was number 3. The R&B charts, it was number 2. Let's see. It was number 1 in Australia.
Yeah. Australia, UK, Switzerland,
Yep.
Netherlands. And I can't remember if it was all of the Netherlands charts because there's a couple different Netherlands charts because it's, but yeah.
Yeah. And after that, there's Let It Go, which on the pop charts was only at number 31, but number 10 on the R&B charts, and number 7 in, is that Sweden. So yeah, I mean,
It was a hit world over.
oh yeah. And to do that, like you said, independently, that is amazing. And to give something, to give Prince the confidence to, decide to want to go further, to now I want to put out the Gold Experience by myself. But, as things got crazier with the fight with Warner Brothers, then it didn't happen. He wanted to release it the same day with Warner Brothers with Come. They vetoed that.
Which,
and they,
any label would have been crazy to say, yes, let's put out 2 albums that everybody is going to know are by the same dude. And let's have a marketplace battle royale and have both albums pull sales from each other. Because I mean, back in those days, it wasn't, music consumption just wasn't the way it is now.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's a surprise album drop, and then the next week you're already looking for the next surprise album drop from somebody else. You've already moved on. Back then you lived with an album for a while. Like if it really got into you, you played that sucker all the time. And while I would have liked to see how that would have played out, any company, like it or not, the label is there to make money. I would have liked to see that play out, but anybody would have been fired for greenlighting that. It doesn't matter who, on what level of a label. It wasn't until, mid 2000s when In Rainbows was released. Was that Radiohead?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When they released In Rainbows, it was every talking head was like, this is a horrible idea. They're pay what you want. They're never going to make any money off of that. They thought that was going to be the end of Radiohead. No, not at all. And Prince was doing these ideas before the internet could handle these ideas. So
well,
he was ahead of his time. That something like that could happen today, and it could happen with very little downside whatsoever. It just, the way the market was back in the day, it couldn't handle that.
Yeah. And I mean, actually, what, a year or two, really? Because you look at 96, Tupac drops All Eyes on Me. Now, those weren't 2 separate albums, but the double CD, that was, unheard of unless you were talking about a greatest hits compilation for somebody.
Right.
But to do it of all new material, that was unheard of. But that was 2 years after Prince wanted to put out Come and Gold Experience. Then, of course, after Tupac dropped All Eyes on Me, then just about everybody, Wu-Tang,
Right.
Oh God, Outkast, you name it. A bunch of, I guess, R&B and hip hop artists were dropping double CDs all of a sudden. Then you fast forward to the 2000s, Beyonce with the, I forget what the title of the Beyonce album was, but there was Beyonce, then the Sasha Fierce, both the same day. Frank Ocean does the same thing. I think probably Kanye also, I think. So yeah, so a lot of these ideas, I mean, Prince was definitely ahead of his time. Like you said, the internet. The only other artist thinking about the internet was David Bowie
Yeah, it was
at that
Bowie.
time. Yeah. And I mean, the idea of streaming, the idea of free downloads that predated what Napster and man,
Ooh, Napster.
yeah.
Oh, back in the day.
Yeah, but I mean, Prince was thinking about those things. Selling the CD at shows. I've been to a couple of concerts where I mean they were literally burning the CDs, and these are like I think Take Six, that group. I mean they were literally burning CDs right there at the show, and for
Yeah,
$5, yeah,
there were a lot of groups that tried to get into that, and I
yeah,
think that technology became cost effective enough that they could start doing that right at the beginning of the demise of the CD.
yeah,
Because yeah, I mean the digital players started taking over what people wanted to carry around. So that CD was really just nothing more of a vehicle to get it from point A to your iPod or mini disc player or
right,
whatever you had back in that time.
yeah. I think now this whole idea with streaming, because that's first there was the Napsters and people were worrying about free music, and then I think Apple Music came along. But these were all ideas that again Prince had it, Bowie
Mhm.
had it. Um, Websites like now you have what Neil Young, you have Frank Zappa, where you can purchase downloads of some of the stuff that would be considered bootlegs if it was done by anybody else.
Yeah.
And even Prince with the MPG Music Club thing, he was, yeah, again, he kind of put that, planted the flag and said, hey, let's, let me start selling stuff out of the vault this way.
Yeah, and love for one another and NPG, what was it, NPG Online Limited?
Yeah.
They were kind of towing the waters with being able to do that sort of thing, but I don't think anybody expected him to come out swinging the way he did with the NPGMC. Like that.
Ooh,
That was
man, I
just
missed that.
it was just unheard of. Like, wait, what? Why a new album's worth almost every month?
I missed that.
And that's when I really started to take notice of the internet as, which it's weird to say that now that I spend like 8 hours a day working via the internet. But to think about 20 years ago, 21 years ago, it was just, well, I guess the internet's useful for something.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like, what is this thing here? What's an email? It's what's that commercial that uses the old footage from the Today Show with Brian Gumble and Katie Couric, and they're like, this thing, the internet, what's an ampersand? It's all this stuff.
Oh, I haven't seen the commercial in I don't know how long.
Man, look, you kids out there, you don't realize.
Don't know.
Yeah. See, you may have discovered this fascinating thing called vinyl. But see, when we were kids, that was all we had. There was no internet, no nothing. And, here comes Prince. I think I was freaked out. Just that little scene in Graffiti Bridge, where he's doing something. He pulls up the track on the computer. Like, it's like, and I don't even think there wasn't Pro Tools was out then, wasn't it?
I don't know. I have a certification in Pro Tools that's several years old by this point, but I don't even know its history. I couldn't tell you when that started, but yeah, I thought that was just some Star Trek stuff that they threw into the movie. Like, oh, that's not real. That's not coming.
No, I had a friend in San Francisco, Carolyn Folk, that she was big into electronic music. She's done stuff with a lot of different groups in that sort of genre. And I remember her talking about, like, oh yeah, I'm getting this patch bay, and then I got to spend all this time connecting the patches and all of that so I can create the music on the computer. And I'm like, what? I'm still excited over the Roland A50, the Yamaha D27, to me, that's cutting edge technology. She's talking about patch bays and stuff. It's like,
And at that
man.
time, I was still trying to simulate James Brown, putting the whole band around one microphone.
Yeah.
If you stay about 10 feet back that way, then I can stay right here and we'll sound good together. Let's do it.
That's right. These are God's ears. We can't talk about God's ears. We're gonna make a hit. But yeah, I mean, like I said, it's such a fascinating history surrounding one album. We haven't even gotten to the album. It was just the one song, The Most Beautiful Girl in the World. And again, even with that, there's controversy with that, because not long after that drop, there was this lawsuit that kept the album from being reissued here in the 2000s until now. Let's see, who is it? Bruno Bergonzi. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly.
And Michelle
Vicino. And their song "Taking Me to Paradise," which again, not to be confused with the Eddie Money hit.
Right, yeah. So with this, and I really think Warner Brothers is the most at fault for this, but super indirectly. So I'll just, we did it last time, but I'll just,
I know you had the inside knowledge on the whole
so
lawsuit.
When Prince originally was going to release The Most Beautiful Girl in the World, he wanted to put the song that ended up becoming New World on Emancipation. That was originally what he wanted to be, the B-side.
That was mind-blowing.
And they said, no, we gave you one song, take it or leave it, be happy with it. We shouldn't even be doing that, but here you go. So he basically took The Most Beautiful Girl in the World and remixed it to within an inch of being recognizable. He sped it up, put a club beat on it, added a bunch of synth. And I mean, it's hard to call it a remix because it's almost a completely new song, just with the same kind of similarities.
Yeah.
So that is the B-side. That is the only version that sounds remotely close to Taking Me to Paradise. I mean, their song sounds more like Cutting Crew's I Just Died in Your Arms Tonight than it does Most Beautiful Girl in the World. Everybody thinks about it.
Yeah.
So I contend that they originally heard that club edit, the beautiful variation, as I call it, that they heard that. Now, with it sped up, the melody played over top of that beat, it's almost impossible to not think, okay, he heard our song and just started it. Because they were both initially released on the same single, legally, they're the same song. Because he had to put it on there. The Beautiful was a remix of the other one, but it really gets to be a chicken or the egg type of thing. Nobody besides Prince at that time knew which actually came first. It could be he created this beautiful club mix and then decided, well, what if I slow it down and I'll make that the A side? Because that's not an unheard of idea to do as well.
Yeah.
Either way, it doesn't matter. All Bergonzi and Vicino's lawyers had to do was say, prove you didn't do it that way. It sounds like my client's song. Here we go. And if I remember right, Prince won the initial and lost the first appeal. And the initial one, I think, the first decision, I think, happened like 8 years after they filed the suit. And it was at the end of 95 when the suit became public knowledge, at least. I don't know how the Italian court filing system works, but so that put the kibosh on the Mustang 96 single that was about to come out in probably December 95, January 96. So that stopped that because there's this lawsuit. 8 years later, the court rules for Prince. I believe it was they ruled for Prince the first time.
Right. Yeah.
And then the appeal went against Prince, and then the second appeal went against Prince, but that one it's hard to say if it actually went against Prince or if it was because he didn't have any representation there, because there's no way of knowing, as hard as it was to get a hold of him, Prince being Prince, there's no way of knowing if he even knew that that second appeal was happening in 2015. So, and we've all seen it on the court TV shows, which I know most of those are TV shows, but it's not too far of a stretch from reality to where they couldn't even be bothered to show up. Well, they lose without even considering anything. So the Italian courts, though they decided that Prince won when it was initially all about the copyright and the IP and who can use do, re, mi, fa, first four notes of the major scale to create melody. I mean, that's what they're arguing over. Because it's not the chord progression. It's not the lyrics that you can't copy. It's the melody, because the melody is what can be considered intellectual property. Otherwise, there's only 12 tones. I mean, your chord progressions are going to run out pretty fast.
Right.
So it became increasingly less about the song that they were arguing over and more about showing up in the process. What happens when lawyers get involved. And so I really feel if Warner Brothers had just said, fine, put New World on there too, this never would have happened.
Yeah.
And that was a very long-winded way to get back to that point.
Not but very educational, because like I said, I've read about the lawsuit, but I didn't know all of the details surrounding it. And it brings into question, was Prince, I forget who his management was around 2015. Did he just change it then, or did he have people in place that were there at least for like a couple of years already? Or
I'm way less familiar with how his management and assistant situation and anything of that nature worked once the Third Eye Girl era came about. Then because it really seemed like a lot of it was like Bill Murray, for instance, because that's always been out there. The only way to get Bill Murray to be in your movie is get a hold of Bill Murray. Well, how do you get a hold of Bill Murray? Yeah, you'll find him. You'll just call him.
Yeah.
Well, how do I call him? And Prince had always been that way. I mean, I'm sure Prince had a phone number, but he was notorious for not carrying his phone on him or just using somebody else's phone. Like, hey, let me call this person. So, and I say notorious, but that's the stories that we know, which is possibly not indicative of everyday life. And I realize that, but there's, like I said, there's just no way of knowing if in 2015 he even knew that was happening. I mean, it was 20 years at that point. Almost anybody else, unless they really, really cared about it by that point, in which it really seemed like he had moved on from that part of his life, and he was kind of, at least at that juncture, at peace with everything as it was happening. It may have just, even if he knew about it, may have just been stressed that he just didn't care. Yeah. Who knows? I mean, it's like that meme, the 7-inch single going around, stop, what is it? Stop saying what I would or would not have.
Oh yeah. I love that
so much. But, and as I'm trying to put words in his mouth, or, but it's so hard to know. He could have gone on any direction just because it was Tuesday, but the little bits, the little glimpses he had given us of his personality and the way he thought, if he knew about it, my inclination is to think he was just done with it by that point. It's like, that was 20 years ago. They're talking about that. All right, whatever they decide, I don't care. Or the news never got to him that there was an appeal, so he couldn't even send somebody. He couldn't send Kirk overseas to say, hey, no, we still care. Like, if you didn't know about it, you couldn't send anybody.
I could see that part of it.
Yeah.
Because there was around that same period where he stopped using Universal to administer his publishing. And I think he wanted to keep it all in-house to where, whoever the office staff at Paisley Park would be the ones, or whoever he appointed would be the ones trying to go collect the money from overseas royalties, or answer legal accusations such as that one. And I guess from what I understand about publishing, it's not that simple of a process. So yeah, I can see where the news didn't reach him. I think I would go with that theory. Probably beyond, yeah, because I think he would fight tooth and nail over his compositions if he was aware of it.
Make it absolutely clear. I don't know if that's what happened. Those seem the most plausible scenarios in my mind. He either heard about it and that stress he didn't need, or he was just over it, or he didn't hear about it because he was impossible to get a hold of.
Yeah.
I think even after he had lost that second appeal, they tried to get in touch with him several times to say, this is what you have to do. You have to pay for the Italian papers to run this retraction that you didn't write this song. And even it was either Bergonzi or Vicino, one of those two were interviewed and said, I don't even know if he even knows. We've not gotten any confirmation. So, he's not represented by Warner Brothers at this point, who was his representation when the song was there. So I think they still had some peripheral involvement with his stuff from that time, at least as far as the legal sake would go. But those two Italians were represented by Warner Brothers as well. So it's like we were saying before, it becomes a huge mess. Like,
yeah,
who should have done what? And, Prince very publicly gave WB the middle finger and walked away and poked the bear at every turn for the next decade. I'm pretty sure Warner Brothers was like, yep, we could tell them.
Yeah, see another plausible theory. Yeah,
we could. Yeah, these are all just theories.
Yeah.
Some are based on things that I've heard, but I've never heard corroborated by anybody else. Some are just based on my own personal experiences with publishing and losing the publishing and other frustrations.
Yeah. I'm just a guy with a podcast. But very interesting theories, though, definitely. But hey, it's now, we don't know how it got resolved, or what agreement, or who gets paid what and why, but we have the most beautiful girl in the world back. It's part of the sequence of the Gold Experience once again, and it now will be officially released on vinyl. What day is that? June 18th for the second round of Record Store Day. And the day before will be the worldwide CD reissue of the Gold Experience. And I'm excited. I mean, kind of, pre-Morris Day news, I was really excited.
Yeah, that did take a lot of wind out of the sails of a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Now that, we know Comerica Bank is still calling the shots, or at least word from representatives of the siblings and Primary Wave said this is all Comerica Bank doing this. It's like, okay, I guess I'll still buy the Gold Experience. But I never had it on vinyl, so I'm still excited for that part of it. So yeah, I'm gonna do what I normally do, Record Store Day, and try to hunt down a copy.
And there shouldn't be a big challenge in hunting down a copy. There's something like 21,000, maybe 24,000. It's in the 5 digits
Yeah.
of pressings that are being made. It's based on the original 95 promo version, which had the like track by track. It's side by side. It ends with the I Hate You remixes on side D, and it's exactly that being redone, which is kind of
Okay.
cool. I'm excited for people to experience it through the side programs, like the way you were referencing earlier, how you put it on, and it was an experience from start to finish on each side, and you had like a little tiny intermission while you flip the record over.
Okay.
And that was like just enough to be a palate cleanser to get your mind right for the next program, But I'm excited for a lot of people to hear and experience this record in a way that they've probably never been able to before.
Yeah, I know there are people that I guess they're trying to get their hands on original copies of it. I know you were mentioning something about a Facebook page.
Yeah, so there's a Facebook page where, because the original copies were numbered with very poor hand stamp, like it was I want to say 4 or 5 digit number. And it was just, that's how they numbered the copies. And some of them are kind of harder to read than others, but the Facebook group's entire purpose is to just try to catalog all of those that are out there. Because as you know, with the original Black album and some of the others that got out and then were not supposed to get out, there's stories of how many got out there, but nobody really knows. These original promos, I think the highest number that we're aware of is in the 4,000s.
Okay.
But there's only 200 or so people who are on the Facebook group who've registered, I don't want to say registered, but like said, hey, I have this number. But it's really for that older one. It's not a way to acquire the new one. And they definitely want to stay off of anybody's radar. So if you try to join that group and ask for something, you're going to be kicked out real quick.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I know. I think I haven't seen the Facebook page, but I know other forms of social media. There are people that are somehow getting that one of the original copies, or at least we hope it's one of the original copies. But it begs to the question: it's like, why not wait till record store day? Because I'm sure they're paying, extraordinary amounts of money for this original copy. Do you know what those originals are going for? Like, say, if they're on eBay or something? Or...
I've heard of them going for anywhere between 80 and 200, but that's heard them going for. I don't know whether they actually went for that or not. These are coming out, these are reissues. So all we have are the tiny pictures that they're showing on the Record Store Day website that are truly all the
mock-ups
of the set. Yeah. So I don't know if it's going to have the groove etching or not. And I had it written down exactly what it was in my notebook that I left at home, unfortunately. But there were song lyrics. I know side 2, I believe, had etched into the groove, that space between the song grooves and the sticker. It had the lyrics to Dolphin. If I cut off all my fins before I'll let you tell me how to swim. And so I'd be curious to see if that is on there. I would hope it is, but who knows? The originals were I believe the same kind of vinyl, to where it's supposed to be that kind of translucent goldish.
Right.
But based on some of the things I've heard about quality of a lot of the vinyl pressings of the reissues, I don't know. Is it going to be actually clear? Is it going to be like the 2010 where the European version is like super clear, and then the clear one that we got in the States is like that clear plastic plate that you had when you were 4 years old. You
Oh,
could even make out. It's like clear, like
back
white.
of the back of the alphabets box. Yeah.
Yeah, you could kind of make out what's through on the other side, but it definitely wasn't clear vinyl, you know.
Right.
So I have no idea what this new one's going to be like. Like you said, we've only seen the mock-up. I looked on the site. I don't know that I don't think I found a price for it anywhere. So who knows what they're actually going to even charge for it.
Right. Yeah, I think as they get closer to the June 18th date, I think we'll have an idea of what the price point will be. A lot of the record stores that participate, they'll have their pricing on it, probably within that maybe week or two before record store day.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited for that one. The CD, I have the original CD of it. I don't know. I'm becoming more of a completist, at least Prince wise, in my old age, where okay, I've got the Warner Brothers pressing. Now let me get that Sony pressing. And I'm curious as to the liner notes, the booklet. Is it going to be the same? Is it going to be different?
I think the original promo, I think, had the Jim Walsh write-up that's in the booklet.
Okay.
It was just kind of looked like it was taped to the back, to where it wasn't like truly a booklet that went with it. Because the original was just a promo, you know, you didn't put tons of effort into the promo.
Right.
And if you did, the bells and whistles were on one part of it, not every part of it.
Mm-hmm.
95, the bell and whistle was, hey, here's this gold translucent vinyl.
Hey, check it out.
I mean, that was shiny back in the day.
Yeah. But you know, color vinyl then versus color vinyl now.
Oh,
yeah, it's
a bell and whistle. It's not gonna be anything that is going to be amazing quality. It's like marbled vinyl.
Yeah.
But you're still really getting two things that have been smashed together. So inherently it's not going to be as great as if it was just all completely the black shellac, you know.
Yeah. Which hopefully they'll, I mean, I don't know if this is going to be an exclusive record store day release, meaning that this will be the only time you'll get the gold experience. With certain other albums that they have for record store day, it will be an exclusive. And then whether it's 2 weeks later or 6 months or a year later, then you can get the mainstream release, or in some cases, you'll get the special color vinyl version for record store day, and then later a mainstream release with just the regular black vinyl. There's no information from Sony or the Prince estate about whether this will get a wider release on vinyl. I mean, Truth hasn't received a major mainstream release.
Yeah, and that was one that I remember last year I was trying to really dig into, because it was RSD Drops, which wasn't record store day exclusive, but it wasn't record store day first. I could never figure out what exactly Drops meant. Whereas it just here it is, let's see how it does, and then we'll make more, or here it is, enjoy, and we're going to forget about it. Like, I could never find clarification on what the Drops part meant.
Part was. Yeah. I just know I haven't, unless there's a record store that still has a copy for sale, I haven't seen it in wide release. Like, you can't get it on Amazon, you can't get it at Walmart or Target,
right?
Anywhere. So support your local record store.
Yeah, with the Truth, and not to go too far off topic, the main reason I got that one was I had heard Steve Park talk about the mock-up work that he did for years.
Yeah.
I say I heard Steve Park talk about it. It's like, not like I, call him on the phone and he just tells me about it. It's like, I've only talked to Steve Park a couple of times, and he definitely would have no clue who I am, but just more like I heard it mentioned and I was like, oh man, I really want to see that. That sounds amazing. I really want to see that. and it didn't disappoint.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful
Yes, it is.
album, but um, which the Gold Experience coming out, it's going to be about as plain of a cover as you can get, but that even speaks more to the music speaks for itself. It doesn't need that art to draw you in. It's
Yeah. Well, to me, I always thought of it as the Black Album, except dripped in gold. You know, from the moment he started referencing the album or even the music on the album, that's kind of the takeaway I got from it. So I never really expected like this great, graphic design cover. I mean, not to say that the cover's bad now. It's a great looking cover. But I never expected anything, beyond the cover's gold. Didn't say Prince, but it would have the symbol on it.
mm,
And that's what it was. Or, it went from the gold album to the gold experience. So later it's like, okay, it'll say gold, the gold experience, Prince symbol, gold cover. That's it. Just let me listen to the music at that point.
that would be something, because when they released some of the albums from when he was going by the artist, it was Prince. Like Prince was on there. Prince the only time I think Prince appears on written on the Gold Experience is in the lyrics to Endorphin Machine, and that's Princess Da Muerto.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it might be in Jim Walsh's thing a couple of times, but it was trying to really distance himself from the Prince name.
Yeah. And
so if they reissue it on CD, I really would be curious to see where the branding fits in, or if they change it, or if they put Prince somehow on top of the symbol just so that they have that branding on it. I hope not, but
well, back then in the magical world of the 90s, I felt, like I said, because we know now what all of this was about. He was trying to finesse his way out of his record contract. He could have changed his name to anything, but he chose to go with the symbol. And I mean, granted, iconography is more powerful than the written word. So having that symbol, we automatically knew what it was when we saw it. And it, kept us talking about it, and it stayed firmly in our minds the whole time, even through now.
It's brilliant.
Yeah, it's brilliant. At the same time, as it was unfolding then, some of that was still career suicide. It was career,
it was lunacy.
Yeah.
What is this?
I mean, like I said, as a diehard Prince fan, I struggled with it. Like what does this mean? I had a friend of mine like, no, he's trying to get out of his record contract. Okay, that makes sense. But couldn't he change his name to something else, or had done something else? And when I look at primarily the Gold Experience or Emancipation, just think how much more of a reception it would have received if, in a perfect world, no problems with the record labels or anything, but in a perfect world where it said Prince, the Gold Experience, what would the reception of the music would be, not only just to the Prince fans, but to the mainstream public. If you turn on MTV at any given point, 94, 95, and saw the Dolphin video, but minus slave written on his face. And it was just Prince, Dolphin, the Gold Experience, Warner Brothers Records. That song probably would have been a top 5, top 10 hit single compared with the other types of pop music or even R&B music out at the time. That would have been a big single, or at least a pop single. And then you would have had like Shush or Now or something like that would have been big on the R&B charts.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like with because we said, this album and Come and to a certain extent Chaos and Disorder all kind of came from the same body of work. The Come tracks, when they were devised in 93 for the most part, they were fresh and vital and forward thinking, and all it took was a year's delay on getting them out there for them to seem like we've already heard this. Same thing with this whole album, in 94 when it was ready to go originally. And I think at that point it would have had it definitely would have had Days of Wild on the track list, but possibly Acknowledge Me in the Pop Go to Zippa. It would have, that G-Funk era hadn't quite cemented itself yet. New Jack Swing was still, I don't want to say it was in its death throes, but it was definitely on the way out at that point. And this would have been a perfect segue to get in there. And who knows what direction might have taken him next had he been allowed to put it out back then.
Yeah. And, more positive influences as opposed to, I'm now fighting the record companies. I'm now fighting for creative independence and creative control of my art. Yeah. I mean, that's some definite multiverse.
Yeah.
Questions, some quantum mania going on with that one.
That's the real missed opportunity in the Spider-Man movie. What was the gold experience like in the alternate?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, what would Prince had done if there was no battle with Warner Brothers? Actually, I did some mock-ups on Instagram, track listings, kind of playing around with the cover ideas of what would have happened if there was no trouble with Warner Brothers. He renegotiated his contract, got his advance to do the next album, and he wanted to put out Come and Gold at the same time, both under Prince. And what would that look like in that type of a world? Would it, we talked about it earlier, it probably would have been career suicide in that direction.
Mm-hmm.
But what if there was at least, one or two hits off of each record? And even if the album, say, didn't maximize sales, but the momentum of those hit singles, what would that have done to carry him to the next?
Well, that's really why Prince is in such, he's held up the way that a lot of us, hold him up in our minds. Is not every album was, how do I want to say this? Not every album captured everyone's imagination, say the way that Purple Rain did, but there was always something new around the corner. And that was almost the better part about being a Prince fan, is that you knew next year there's going to be another album.
Yeah.
Most acts, it's a good 2 to 3, sometimes 5 years before you get that second record or that third follow-up or anything. With Prince, you knew the next album's around the corner.
Right.
And the next album always had influences of the previous album and foreshadowing what the next album was, but it had a character all its own.
Yeah.
And there is no more 90s album than the Gold Experience. I mean, it runs through every popular style of the day, just within those tracks. And it, start to finish, it's just, I don't want to say it's gold. I was just about to.
It's the gold experience. It's the gold standard.
Crazy amazing.
Yeah, I mean, let's wrap up with those songs. We won't go over each and every song, but last week we were talking about a very interesting observation you made about the sequencing of the album. More so with the vinyl as opposed to the CD. The CD, yes, it's a complete listening experience where it flows from beginning to end. but you said the vinyl makes it, I guess I would say, more like a concept album.
Well,
Probably.
yeah.
It
So
fits like in that vein.
album craft is something that it's had to morph over the years as technology got better and you didn't have to have that limitation of there being just a finite amount of music that you could put on a side of a record or the side of a cassette. The first side, which of the Record Store Day version that's coming out, I believe it goes from P Control. I want to say it stops at We March for the way that the Record Store Day is going to come out. But on the standard original vinyl edition, it was We March, or not We March, P Control, Endorphin Machine. Shh. It was like this eulogy for the Prince persona. You had Prince sounding like he was being nasty, but he was really trying to tell you a little bit of something and just trying to, do the Red Fox and sneak the message in there while, getting the attention with being nasty, And then Endorphin Machine is that eulogy that, it was the Endorphin Machine, Prince Está Muerto, and then here's that palate cleanser of, with the Ohio Players. I can't remember the name of the song, but there's
is it
the Ohio Players.
No,
Michael B was talking about it recently where he hadn't heard whatever and Prince played it for him, whereas real banging section, and then they just slowed the groove down. And so they wanted to do that with the recording of this because Tevin Campbell had already released before, but
not like, yeah.
I've never said the name of the song out loud so much to where I start questioning, like, man, should I be saying it like that? But,
I know it's in my mind it's SHHH, but I'm pronouncing it shh, or elders shush.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
or Dr. Evil. Let me tell you a story about a man named Shh.
Yeah, so that first side's like that rock eulogy to Prince rock star persona. And then the second side is, more about that soul and that emotion, their standard vinyl, which is the experience I would hope everybody gets at some point, where it's just We March, then Most Beautiful Girl in the World, and then Dolphin. And it's love, it's hope, it's aspiration, it's the head and the heart at the same time. And like it's got the 70s-esque throwback vibe to it without actually being that.
Right.
But you can feel it there. If you can't put your finger on it, you can feel it there. And then the third side brings you up right into now, with Now on there and 319 and a lot of other music that sounded like it could be on any of the R&B stations right then and there at that time.
Yeah.
And then, it kind of ends with the hate experience spread over the gap of side 3 and 4, where Billy Jack Bitch and then I Hate You. Like those two together, that's the real full hate experience, And then Gold is the resolution. And all through it, you have Raine Ivana, who was I want to say she was a receptionist at Record Plant Studio when Prince, okay, I got to have her do Welcome to Dawn. She kind of leads you down the path. And as you approach the hate experience, it starts messing up the system. And it feels like it's messing up the system as you approach the hate experience, because it's perfect. That love experience, that We March, even though the verses aren't so uplifting, but that chorus is,
right.
And then Most Beautiful and Dolphin, it's all about self-empowerment and recognizing love, and like as a program, not each one of those all embody that. But there's a definite context to which you experience the songs when you're forced to listen to them in a shorter amount of time, to where if you listen to that first side, even just if you have the digital, listen to that first side's worth of music and then pause. Give it 15 seconds. Don't listen to anything else. Don't do anything else. Just sit and let the music absorb.
Okay.
And then keep playing. Do the same thing after Dolphin. Do the same thing after Billy Jack. I guarantee it's going to be a different experience than you've ever contemplated the album before.
Okay.
And it's an album that's got to be played loud, but there's a certain element to listening to it on the headphones as well, where I can't remember which song it is, but there's the guitar solo where it really feels like it's playing all around you, and you only really feel it when you're wearing headphones.
Okay, just like a really good set of headphones, or we talking like earbuds?
I'm just talking anything.
Anything.
I mean, ideally, you're listening to something that's not gonna be a super thin sound, but headphone technology is a little bit better than it was back in the day of fuzzy earmuffs.
Right.
Um,
Well, even the little earbuds too now.
Yeah. I really mean we're just with the earbuds in, with headphones on, it drowns out the rest of the world, but you really get the sense of how the mix is going. And I can't believe I can't remember which song I'm thinking of where it just feels like you're in the middle of this sonic tapestry of the guitar swirling all around you. With the headphones on, you definitely feel that. You feel it going behind you and going in front of you. And that's something that gets lost when it's just playing in the room and bouncing off all the walls.
Okay. So kind of more of an immersive experience.
Very much so.
Wonder it. Well, you know what? That would beg towards hopefully some point the estate can consider doing like maybe Dolby Atmos or 5.1 surround on some of the albums, probably not all of them.
Those can always get weird because when you go back and redo those, there's when that was first starting to get popular, and I used to tell my students, there's two shining examples. One is there was a set of Queen songs where they did it and it was beautiful and fantastic and like Killer Queen, or you feel it starting from the side and just washing over you and passing by. Like they started at the idea of this is what I can do with the stereo field in this 5.1 mix, but they didn't overdo it. And on the other side, you have Santana's Abraxas, which it is not mixed well for 5.1 at all.
Okay.
Take an album that just has great licks on it. And then the licks are overshadowed by the little studio tricks that they tried to do and didn't quite succeed at. It gets super distracting to where you're not even listening to it anymore. You're wanting to see, all right, what did they do with this? Oh, that's terrible. So no, it was cool. It was trendy for a little while. And I hope they don't go back and try to re-envision what the original vision was. It would be interesting if there was something out there to where Prince had tried to start doing that, or maybe it was a half-formed thought where he started it and somebody could go back through and finish it. But I would be hesitant to hear somebody else's version of what they thought that should sound like that is completely of their own invention.
Yeah. I would say, with the, I don't know if I want to call it like the Giles Martin approach, but, stay faithful to the original notes as you can. If there's room for not improvement, but to where you can do something different, but it doesn't take away from the original mixing notes, or it does, like you said, with the Santana thing, it doesn't take you in a direction that's totally off base from the original content. Let's see. But that's some ideas. Estate, siblings, primary wave, if you're listening. Because they tune in to they never miss an episode of Amari Purple Talk. They always call me for ideas. But I like that idea with the immersive experience though. And you said just with either headphones or a good set of earbuds, nothing cheap or anything, but just a good set.
Any headphones you have. I mean, I remember in 95, I didn't know there was any difference between headphones. Like I knew that the big clamshell ones that you had the big telephone cord that were just not conducive to walking around with your Walkman or your Discman on back in the day. Like I knew those were going to sound better than the others, but
right.
I'm always more of a content rather than a quality person, which I get a lot of flack for because I'm a bass player. So people always expect me to want to make sure I can hear and feel the low end. And I'm like, well, but if I'm going to hear and feel the low end, I'm going to be playing along with it. I'd rather hear myself making that, know? But I'm more in it for the performance. And while the better headphones are absolutely going to give you a better experience, that immersion still happens with even the cheap earbuds. You're going to get it because it's the sound and the signal that's being sent to your earbuds. It's not the quality of it's not the quality of the instrument. It's the what you do with it, what you put through it.
Okay. So yeah, I definitely would like to hear, if any of you guys out there revisit that album, whether you have it now, whether you're listening to it on streaming. I mean, is that a difference to CD versus streaming, or does it matter?
At this point, I don't think that really
doesn't matter. Okay.
Most places pretty much have that figured out now. In 2002, maybe there was a difference, but we've progressed a bit.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, because I mean, I was doing Crowbuzz for a while, going back to Tidal, and also have Apple Music too. So yeah, they've stepped up their game all the way around. So definitely, I would like to hear what your guys' reaction to that. Is it an immersive experience? Do you hear the album differently? Do you think it's more of a concept? Leave us a comment and let us know your thoughts. And I guess we will end this episode. Any final thoughts on the Gold experience?
It's just a great album. It's one that I always pull back out and to mimic some high profile tweeters out there that like to say I'm special because I have this old Prince music that y'all don't. I enjoyed 10 years ago when nobody could find a copy of the Gold experience. Yeah, well, I got it back in 95. So I rock this all the time. And I'm mostly just excited that people actually get to experience it the way it was meant to be.
Yeah, I am definitely glad it is back or going to be back in circulation. This is a very well-loved album amongst Prince fans. Those that are more pro 90s era than any other. This is either like their number one or top 2 or 3 favorite Prince album. I'm glad
it's my top 5.
Oh yeah. I enjoyed it. As far as like the 90s, it's that and Emancipation. I think those are my favorite 90s Prince albums right there. This is a fascinating era. So this is the beginning of people rediscovering it. So I'm glad that it's out. And hopefully, because this is a testament to, like I said, what we got with Rainbow Children, musicology, 3121, 2010, Planet Earth, Artificial Age. This was the beginning of independent Prince. superstar indie artist Prince. This was the beginning of all of that. So by all means, check it out. Get your copy on record store day of the vinyl. Support your local record store. Definitely, if you don't have the original CD, it's getting reissued, so go check it out. And that is going to end this episode of Amari Purple Talk. Thanks, Mr. Raine Baker, for making the appearance on the show. Not once, but twice.
Right.
Within a week.
Yeah.
This is first. Tell us about Listen to Prince. I met this brother through reading his blog. And I thought I knew everything about Prince, but when you read that blog, amazing stuff. But tell us about what's coming next with that.
Yeah, so the Listen to Prince blog originally was on Blogspot, and I kind of outgrew the features that Blogspot was able to offer at the time and started transitioning it over to a new platform, which is almost ready to go live. Really, the main difference that I try to do with mine is give that total view, because the music of the time that it was being made had an impact on the music he was creating. What was happening in the business side had an impact on the music he was creating. What happened in the live show informed the next album that was being done. I mean, like, for instance, Pope. There's a strong case to be made that was a dig at Lenny Waronker, saying, you may be the president, I'd rather be the Pope.
Okay.
And it's as simple as that. And I agree with that take on the song. But I have a background in being a performer and a record producer and a record recording musician and a touring performer, to where I've got a little bit of experience in each one of not each one, because fashion and everything else that I didn't have a foot in, but enough of the different disciplines that I feel like I bring a different perspective to the conversation than many of the other bloggers out there. And you're not the only one who's reached out and said that's a different take. I didn't quite expect that to be something, but that makes sense. I don't shy away from talking about the rumors, because I will talk about them. I'm never ever going to say that this is fact. I'm never going to put it out there and say, oh, I heard this once, so this has to be it. I will be very upfront in saying that I heard this once. I haven't found it corroborated anywhere else, but it's plausible.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like Mythbusters. This is plausible.
Yeah.
This is busted. This is done. But yeah, so it's going to be going live soon. The old one is still available online now, and I'm pretty excited that I can say that Renato Neto liked my entry on news enough to share it himself through his Facebook page.
Nice.
So yeah, all right. I guess I must have got a little bit right there, But yeah, I'm excited to take everybody on this journey with me as I try to make it a little bit more accessible, because the old entries did get a little bit long. So if you've got a long bus ride, you might be able to get through an article. But yeah.
All right. So definitely looking forward to the new site, and also looking forward to participating in it as well. So let me know whatever it is you need to help make that happen. Just let me know. Cool. All right. And that's it. Thank you, Raine, for being on the show, and hopefully you come back.
Another episode.
Cool. All right. And that is it. Be sure to like, subscribe if you're listening on YouTube. Also, download on your favorite podcast platform. Download. And also leave comments and share the video, or not share the video, share the program, and support Amari Communications. And until next week, create your day and create your life. Peace.
Party people, man. Time to get on the one. Keep it on the one. So we're all the purple party people, man.